Welcome to episode number 28, all about Noah and the flood. The other day I was watching this guy named Jason on Archaics over on YouTube, also on archaics.com. You should definitely check him out. He's brought a lot of great information to light, and is actually the inspiration for this video. He released this video that was like a bunch of clips that he put together, and it begins with Noah and how he had basically became a drunkard afterwards because he couldn't deal with the loss of the life that he had knew before the flood. And for some reason, that part of the story never occurred to me. I had spent plenty of time thinking about the preparedness and someone who could actually see the warning signs and take heed of the warning. Thought about, what kind of person, or not what kind of person. I thought a lot about the fact that he did become drunk at one point in time. I sort of kind of took it as like a one-off kind of a thing, sort of an accidental, not being careful. And having your son see you like that. And then, of course, cursing the future because you weren't being very careful. But the connection that he was mourning the loss of his previous life didn't really occur to me. And so that just struck me. I'm like, wow, this is a very meek Gnostic story. This is exactly the kind of thing that this whole philosophical idea that I'm working on is all about. So just real briefly, the story, God gives a warning that humanity has 120 years, and only Noah takes heed of the warning. He's the only one that can see the signs or hear the words. And him and his family prepare. He builds an ark. They prep up. They gather all their provisions and all the animals of the world. And then as the flood begins, they set sail and survive. Then once the water recedes, they begin anew. And they set out to make life flourish on the earth again. And at some point in time, Noah plants a vineyard, and there's a celebration or something going on, and he passes out drunk in his tent, and that's when his son sees him. And he then curses his future generations of that child because of this transgression. Another person that covers that part of it really well is Jordan Peterson. I'm talking about how this represents, if we don't respect the culture that we are being handed, that we are actually cursing our own future. And he does that in his biblical series. So if you haven't seen those, you should probably watch those as well. They're great. He gives you the psychological perspective on these things. And I think he did a really, really good job on those. It was that series of videos that led me down this path that I'm on now. All that aside, the part of the story that I want to talk about is the alcohol. So the meek gnosis is, we don't believe this world, unlike most Gnostics, we don't believe this world was created by the evil demiurge. We do believe that it was created by God. But we do believe that this place is filled with spirits. You can call them lesser gods. We call them angels and demons. And these things are like emotions, but they're also things like, war and all that sort of thing. They're your desires. And they can possess you. And another word for that is spirit. And so connecting all of this, what you see from Noah is he was mourning the loss of his previous life. Everything that he had is gone. Everyone he knew other than his immediate family was killed. His way of life was gone. And you see, he was able to prepare for the event itself. But what he failed to do was to prepare himself for life afterwards. And that's what the meek gnosis is all about. You see, this world is filled with tragedy. The Bible is filled with all these catastrophes. The second line of the Bible is about a catastrophe and the whole earth being destroyed. And then immediately within the first 7 or 8 chapters, I think Noah's the 7th chapter, the earth is destroyed again. Tragedy comes on these great scales, but they also come in your personal life. And you need to be prepared to survive these things. But not only that, you need to be able to survive what happens afterwards so that you don't curse the future. So, again, another word is spirit, and spirits are your emotions. So another way of viewing this story is after the flood, Noah spends the rest of his time wallowing in his emotions, cultivating his emotions, making his emotions grow bigger into a vineyard. And then he consumes these. He's all consumed. His whole work, life, and focus is on this emotional tragedy of his life. And because he couldn't let go of the life that he had before, he cursed his family's future. He cursed everyone's future in the, grand scale of what the story represents. And I think that's the important part that I would like everyone to really, really focus on for a while. Everyone do whatever you want. But I think this is one of the key parts that I haven't seen anyone really, really talk about. Noah loved life. He was so in tune with life that he was able to hear the warnings. He saw the signs and was able to prepare. That's not easy to do. The world will try and stop you. But he forgot to prepare himself. And that's where I always like to bring in the Beatitudes. This is the great teachings of Jesus. In that to be poor in spirit means to not give up your emotions, but to be poor is to not allow them to grow. You don't want to cultivate your emotions. You need to learn to regulate your emotions. We are here to learn to regulate our emotions, to regulate our drives and our desires. We're all consumed by these things. And you see, when we learn to not even suppress them, but to keep them in perspective, to not allow them to grow into the spirited nature, this is how you reach the kingdom of heaven. Not literally. But when we do this, and just like Noah, you have to mourn the loss of the life that was before. And the way that you can do this is by becoming meek. This misunderstanding, and the reason why they twisted the meaning of the word meek. To be meek is to be where the word comes from, a war horse, a non-domesticated animal that allows one person to ride it into the most hellish conditions and can still follow instructions. That's where the word comes from. It means no matter what great tragedy befalls the world, you still have the ability to hear the truth and follow the truth. This is the great teaching that allows us to survive these great tragedies that will happen. And so I do want to thank Jason for pointing out that key part of the story. The Bible is amazing. There are just so many ways of seeing these stories, and it's amazing. So with that, my friends, tragedy will come. A lot of folks believe that the warning signs are out there now, and many folks are beginning to prepare. got their food, they got their ammunition, they got their bunkers and all this sort of thing. Stockpiling medications for whatever reason. Different story. But if you're going to be prepared to survive the event, you must prepare yourself to survive after the event. It's by learning to regulate your drives, your desires, your emotions, keeping the angels and demons of your life in check so that you don't spend the rest of your life cultivating them and cursing the future. With that, my friends, I will see you on the next one.